Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Wake up, Link. That is a Sheikah slate. Take it. It will help guide you after your long slumber. Hold the Sheikah slate up to the pedestal. That will show you the way. Link, you are the light. Our light. That must shine upon Hyrule once again. Now go.
Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild walkthrough. So I know by now this game's already been done and recorded and walked through the complete, destruction basically. But you know what? I'm gonna make my own videos. I like this game a lot. I like it so much that I actually haven't, I probably shouldn't be saying this because I'm making a walkthrough, but I haven't beat it yet on my main file. But I wanted to make a new one because I don't want this game to end. I mean, just look at this game. Look at it. It is amazing. It is a great game with a few faults. I think my main complaints with this game is that you can't roll as Link, and there's really no major dungeons traditionally like other Zeldas, and there's voice acting. Now, the voice acting isn't horrible, but if I could have my way, I would probably get rid of it. I kind of feel like they should have learned their lesson with Super Mario Sunshine, that these games are a lot better text-wise. And if you look at games like Final Fantasy, you could just see the big difference between the voice acting and the text. They can smash a lot more story with text than they do with voices, because when they have voice acting, you end up with 80-minute cutscenes. So, I mean, But that's fine. For the most part, the controls are really good, and the graphics are amazing. The Switch is a lot of fun to play on, and this is an extremely challenging game at first. I think most of the challenge for this game really comes from it being a totally new Zelda experience, because it totally breaks all of the molds of normal Zelda. I mean, you can have up to 30 hearts maximum, I believe. You can jump whenever you want. There's no rolling. There's not 8 dungeons like there usually are. Heart containers are replaced by these Hyrulean things that I totally forgot the name of right now. The stamina wheel, unfortunately, is back, and of course, it is totally open world instead of being a little bit linear. The open world thing is actually a ton of fun, and they kind of experimented with that in Link Between Worlds on the 3DS. And in that game, you would go to a shop and buy whatever item you needed, and that way you could do any dungeon at any point that you wanted. And I was wondering if they were going to do something a little bit similar to Link Between Worlds in this game, and was wondering, how are they going to really do that in a big open world Zelda game? But, you know, they're Nintendo, they don't really like to do the same thing twice. I know that we always make fun, everybody makes fun of Nintendo because all their games are exactly the same, and it's true, they're pretty dang similar. I mean, they haven't changed the story in like 30 years, but for the most part, they try to like to try to make the gameplay different, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean. So anyway, I was pretty happy with this. I am having a ton of fun with this game. And as I said before with the challenge, it feels a little bit like a dumbed down version of Dark Souls. And in this case, like you can cook here, which has nothing to do with Dark Souls. I'll get back to that in a second. But you know, you can do cooking in this game, and you can cook on cooking pots, you can cook on fires, and you'll see me struggling a little bit to get this stupid apple roasted because it just keeps rolling away from the fire. But eventually you can get it on, and it will roast into a baked apple, which will heal more, and it's almost always better to cook your food than it is to eat it uncooked, because the cooked will give you way more hearts and will also give you different abilities like increased stamina. Some things will increase your hearts past their maximum amount temporarily, and you know, so on. So anyway, what was I saying? With the dumbed down version of Dark Souls, it kind of feels that way, because everybody's first experience with Dark Souls is usually, at least from what I can tell, a pretty enraging, like, what the heck is wrong with this game kind of experience. But once you put some hours into it, you spend some time with it, you learn all the enemies, you figure out the controls. I mean, the Dark Souls controls are a little bit odd. Once you figure those out, then the game's actually pretty easy. And the same thing with Zelda. It gets really hard at the beginning, mostly because a lot of things will one-hit you, because you have so few hearts. And even later on in the game, there's still a ton of enemies. If you have 15 hearts and even highly upgraded armor, they will kill you in 3 hits. And I'm not sure that's really a true difficulty measure. I mean, getting one shot in things is just kind of a cheap tactic to me, but it works because you have so many methods to get your health up. You have so many ways to increase your defense, increase your attack. And once you learn the enemy's methods, I think Zelda's talking here.
Head for the point marked on the map in your Sheikah slate.
Anyway, once you learn the enemy's methods, it becomes quite a bit easier, so it's really just a learning experience, which is a good thing. I mean, I can't remember the last time I've had a game where besides Dark Souls, where I had to sit down and try to think about new strategies to try to use in the game. There's a lot of stuff and a lot of different ways you can use to try to defeat enemies in this. You can shoot beehives that'll scare away enemies. You can jump down on top of them. You can sneak attack them at nighttime. I mean, there's a ton of different ways, and there's a whole bunch of things I still haven't even discovered. Like I recently learned, if you pick up a rusty sword and you throw it at a water Octorok, they will throw a cleaned sword back at you. Now, an interesting thing about this that kind of goes back to Skyward Sword is that your weapons break. Now, in Skyward Sword, I think it was mostly your shield that wore out, but in this game, everything from your shield to your bow to your weapons will break. Luckily, your armor does not break. I think that would have been a little bit too cruel, but it also means you would have to do quite a bit of inventory management. You have to make sure you're not wasting weapons, and you want to try to do other methods whatever method you can to try to keep your weapons alive. And of course, sometimes you'll run into events like that, where you will just die to stupid stuff, whether it's getting struck by lightning, having a bokoblin throw a fire barrel at you, or later on, I think I end up drowning in cold water. So be sure to pick up anything that you see in this game. Materials have no inventory limit. Your weapons and your shields will though, so That's another thing. You'll be able to raise your inventory size later, but for now we have a pretty sizable size for the beginning of the game, but it will fill up quicker than you will like it to. You'll also want to kill as many enemies as you can at the beginning, but don't be afraid to run away from them. I mean, we're going to need bows, we're going to need arrows, any of the bokoblin pieces and parts and horns and things like that that we can pick up. We're going to want all of those. And the hard thing in this game is trying to decide which materials to keep and which ones to sell. So for that reason, because rupees are a little bit difficult to come by if you don't sell anything, I'm just going to recommend you don't sell a whole lot of materials until you are sure that you don't need them, and try to use other methods for rupee gaining. I will have a couple of videos later on what I feel are some of the more efficient and more productive ways of getting rupees, but for now we're just going to collect everything we can, try to kill as many enemies as we can, and of course pick up every weapon you can. You'll want to try to cycle as best you can by tossing out your low-level weapons and collecting your the higher ones, but you kind of want to find a balance, because if you're in a lower level monster area, it's not worth using your really high level weapons on those monsters. You may want to pick up some of the low level weapons and just kill the monsters a little bit slower, but you save your better weapons. We won't have to worry about that for quite some time though, and for now we're just going to be getting this Sheikah Tower activated. Now when this game came out, I was a little bit worried they would follow the mold of most open world games too closely. So by that I mean, it seems these days every brand new open world game just copies Assassin's Creed. I mean, from Mad Max to Far Cry, they're exactly the same as Assassin's Creed. You climb a tower, it reveals the area around you, there's a series of objectives in that area, you do that 10 more times, the main quest is somewhere in between, and then you're done with the game. And when I saw these towers, which this is an amazing scene anyway, I think, when I saw these towers, I was a little bit worried that that's what Nintendo was doing here, that it was going to activate the area, show me the map of the area, and then it would have like, okay, there's 10 chests here you need to collect, and then 30 shrines here you need to collect, but the only thing the tower does is reveal the map, which is immensely helpful on its own. This game really wants you to explore. It doesn't want the map to tell you where to go, which I think is really useful. But it's not too mean, because the quests do have objective markers, so it's not like if you put this game down and don't come back for a couple of weeks, you're going to completely forget where the heck you're supposed to go, like what would happen as a kid with Ocarina of Time. This game is nice enough to kind of remind you, okay, this dot is in this area, you need to go there. And here's the map of the first plateau that we are at, and I think I zoom out here a little bit, just kind of to show off, in a second I think I do that, just to show off how huge Hyrule is in this game. Now, of course, with all things, quick travel shrinks the world, so the game will feel pretty big at the beginning, but the more you play it, it's going to feel a little bit smaller, especially once we get mounts and ways of faster travel.
You have been asleep for the past 100 years. The beast. When the beast regains its true power, this world will face its end. Now then, you must hurry, Link. Before it's too late.
You know, with other Zelda games, I could just talk straight through them because there was no voice acting, didn't have to worry about talking over them, but in this game I do have to worry about that, so I'll try to pay more attention in the future. So this tower you see is very, very high in the air, and if you walk around and look just anywhere, you can see really far away from you, and you can go anywhere that you see in this game. Well, almost anywhere. There's some edges of the map that it won't let you go. It's really a good idea to kind of get a bearing on where you are when you're up on top of these. Just look around you, see what's around, and if there's anything interesting, just go to it. I mean, there's nothing stopping you. If you wanted to, you could go straight to Ganon. You don't actually have to finish any of the main quests, even though I'm pretty sure defeating Ganon right at the beginning would be impossible or just extremely difficult without getting at least a couple of better weapons. So anyway, when you're finally ready and you're done looking around here, just drop down the tower. You can climb up pretty much anything in this game, which you'll learn really quickly here. For now, though, just drop down here. The fall damage is pretty, not convenient, lenient, I guess. You can fall a decent length before you take any significant damage. And once you get down here, this old man's going to start talking to you, and I think I'm going to end the video here, or for my narration anyway, the video will keep going, and I will continue this walkthrough on in the next part, where we're going to be hunting after a couple of shrines so we can get a paraglider from this old guy.